Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our filming of our podcast, A Real Point of View, where we look at movies and how they relate to pretty much just about anything. But tonight we're going to talk about movies in general and how they relate to us, and but also more importantly, what films are considered really important films. Are they only the films that major filmmakers and major studios make? Or is it the new streaming productions that come through services like Netflix and Hulu and Crackle? Um, are these viable films? Are they films that the Academy would recognize? Are they films that are being enjoyed, but are they quality films? Different questions that are being asked in society, in media, going back and forth, and just questions that we, at least want to talk about. So, Karen, kind of give us an overview. This is really a subject that I know you've been kind of paying a lot of attention to more recently. Give us kind of an overview of what's going on out there.
Okay, sure, Greg. The genesis for this topic really comes courtesy of Steven Spielberg, who made national headlines last month, March, when he started lobbying for a closing of what he regarded as a loophole in the Academy Awards regarding eligibility for Oscar consideration. He feels that there's a loophole that is allowing movies produced by Netflix to be considered for Oscar nominations and for winning Oscars, and he feels that that's unfair. He feels that that's unfair to filmmakers, it's unfair to the movie industry, and what he's quoted as saying is that once you commit to a television format, you're a TV movie. And he feels that Netflix movies are TV movies. So they should qualify for Emmys, they should be considered for Emmys, they should be considered for Golden Globes in the television arena, but not for Oscars. So that's why I thought that might be an interesting interesting topic for us to talk about. Let me just mention some of the considerations that go into whether a movie can be considered for an Academy Award. And some of the main rules are that it has to be a feature-length film, it has to be feature-length content, and that's defined as over 40 minutes. It has to be publicly exhibited as a 35 or 70 millimeter film in a 24-48 frame progressive stand digital cinema format. And then there's also minimum requirements for projection and for image characteristics and for image compression. It has to be subject to paid admission in a commercial motion picture theater in Los Angeles County. It has to have a qualifying run of at least 7 consecutive days. And one of those screenings have to occur at least 3 times daily. One of the periods of screenings has to be at least 3 times daily. And one of the screenings has to be between 6 and 10 p.m. And it has to be advertised and exploited during the Los Angeles County qualifying run in a manner normal and customary to theatrical feature distribution practices, and it has to be released within the awards year deadline. So those are like some of the main considerations that go into whether a film can be considered for an Academy Award or not. And then you have movies like Roma, Mudbound. Mudbound, I believe, was simultaneously released in the theater and on Netflix. It was considered for 4 Academy Awards. I don't remember if it won any. I don't think it did.
oh my God, I can't think of her name now, singer.
Mary J. Blige.
Mary J. Blige was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting
Right, for Best Supporting Actress and for Best Song Composer.
the song, right?
And then there were a couple of other categories in which it was nominated. And then you have Roma for this past year's Academy Awards. It was nominated for Best Picture and nominated Best Actress. It had a Best Actress nomination and some other nominations.
Right.
And it won for Best Director.
Right.
Alfonso Cuarón won for Best Director, and the star of that picture was nominated for Best Actress. She did not win. But anyway, so it was nominated and did pretty well.
Right.
So you have that, and then you've got you've got this debate. Should the Academy be more recognized more freely, or be more open to recognizing the streaming world in which we live in, because so many people consume content by streaming or from television or from their phones or on their tablets or whatever? Or should we sort of double down on what a traditional movie is and what really qualifies for Academy Award consideration? There are some people who agree with Steven Spielberg and say, if the Academy keeps going in this direction, sort of allowing Netflix to kind of slip in there, and Netflix is sort of like just the catch-all phrase for Amazon and
streaming networks,
for just streaming services.
Right.
To me, what we have here is just this sort of like this collision course of these morphed kinds of things and these morphed kinds of categories. You've got you have people like Steven Spielberg sort of raising a warning about streaming services like Netflix being able to qualify for like the ultimate gold standard, which is the Academy Award. But then you've got the truth of what's going on with people being able to see films for free, more pirating, and also just not necessarily going to theaters to see the movies. At the same time, you've got some of the main industry people, studios like Paramount, like Sony or whatever, who are also trying to own and control content from content producers, and they're also beginning to start their own streaming platforms. You've got Warner Brothers that's starting their streaming platform.
Disney is starting theirs too.
Disney's starting theirs too, and they're huge. So you've got these main players, these huge studio players who are getting their tentacles into the streaming world. But at the same time, you've got these sort of stalwarts of the movie industry saying, listen, let's not be too hasty to just sort of embrace all these things, because if we do, we're going to ruin what the movie industry is. If we keep doing this, then independent producers are not going to go to Sundance Film Festival or to the Toronto Film Festival or the other major film festivals, the LA Film Festival, and try to get their movies noticed or bought so that they can be distributed. You're going to have fewer people going to the theaters, and theater owners are going to have a harder time making money, which means there's going to be fewer platforms to have this content distributed. But then at the same time, you've got also the reality, which is when movies are given to Academy members to review before nominations are distributed, guess how they review them? They get DVDs that they can watch on their televisions. They're specially encrypted, special category type DVDs, but they get them so that they can watch them at home. They don't go to the movie theaters to watch all these movies, even though people like Steven Spielberg say that the movie, to really be enjoyed as the director intends, you need to go to a movie theater for that experience. You can't get it through a Netflix type format. You can't get it on your tablet or on your television. But that's exactly how Academy members look at films.
So just to present a slight caveat. Okay, so in essence, as far as the information that you provided with regard to the Academy and the parameters that are necessary for it to be, quote unquote, nominated for an Academy Award, basically is really seeing it at a major theater. The irony, though, in this is, even though the voting Academy is getting DVDs to watch it, that's for the voting purpose, though, not necessarily for them to just enjoy it and just be enjoying it just in general. So that might be one reason why they might not think that that's the same type of thing. Whereas if you are the consumer watching the movie, either at the theater or at home, bears the difference. But see, what the real question is here, in my mind, is this any different as far as the voting? Because the public doesn't vote. That's the first thing. The public is just out there to take in whatever movie they want to see and either enjoy it or not enjoy it. Now, there is no parameter out there that says that they can't enjoy it in a major theater, at home, on a plane, on a bus, on a train. Because that doesn't really matter to, I think, the point that Steven Spielberg is trying to make. However, as the public, whether it's us critics or whether it's any other viewing public, what's important, I think, to us is, did we like it? Was it enjoyable? Was it over the top? Was it a situation where they spent so much money yet got no true girth out of it because it just didn't resonate well? So the argument that's, in my understanding, the argument that Steven Spielberg is making with regard to the Academy does follow suit with regard to some of the rules and parameters that even you mentioned, aforementioned a moment ago, Karen. But at the same time, as things progress in the world, as things continue to change in the world, maybe those rules should be reviewed, amended, because of the times, because of how things are changing. And as we alluded to even in brief, like Disney and Warner Brothers are delving into the streaming universe, we'll say, to facilitate what a lot of these other agencies are doing. Is a business, and they are trying to make money. They're also trying to utilize the entertainment industry that they like or love or whatever the case may be. Does it mean that it's any less viable? Because I'll be honest with you, I love Mudbound. I wrote an article on Mudbound. It would not have mattered whether I saw it in the theater or in my home, and I did, because I watched it on Netflix. But also too, it's still a paid situation. Netflix isn't free. So money, is that the true devil here or true situation here? Is it prestige? Is it I'm producing these films? Because one of the thoughts I said, and I am being a little sporadic, I apologize, but one of the thoughts I had when you mentioned this to me before was, if the independent filmmaker is making films and they're going straight to television, i.e. the streaming situation, which is really not like true basic television, but into the streaming format, what does that mean for directors and producers like Steven Spielberg, like DreamWorks, who have invested all this money to have these major studios available to them, or monies to go across the country, or to put into making these fine films, because it's no doubt Steven Spielberg is a producer of really fine films. There's no doubt about that. But are they going to start losing that ability because it takes so much less to finance a movie, possibly, to put it in that independent realm and get it straight to an audience that is, starting to view most of their things online, most of their things on a streaming system? That's what I'm thinking, is that are these producers, Paramount, MGM, studios, going to start losing that wallet to make films because independent films don't need as much and are still viable?
Well, I think there's some arguments to whether independent films are viable, because under the traditional system, I guess, to me, I would characterize the question differently. Is what makes a film a matter of distribution, or is it a matter of format? The Academy says that a feature film needs to be at least 40 minutes in length. It's like, okay, if it's less than 40 minutes in length, then it might be a short film, but it's not a feature film. Okay, fair enough. Nobody's really arguing about that. But Steven Spielberg's contention that the loophole that allows Netflix content to be considered for Academy Awards is an argument of distribution. He's saying, they're not abiding by all the distribution rules, and because of that, they're getting unfair consideration. On the other hand, I think you can make an argument that the existing structure has not served independent filmmakers well, which is why a Netflix coming along and Amazon Prime coming along has actually been a blessing. Mudbound was left languishing at Sundance. Nobody bid on that property until Netflix came along and bid on it literally at the 11th hour. And if Netflix hadn't bought Mudbound, it wouldn't have been distributed anywhere. It's not like it wasn't available. It wasn't like Paramount or Sony or Disney could have bought that property. They declined. Mm-hmm. Alphonse Cuarón with Roma. I mean, you're talking about a black and white film, largely in Spanish, about not with one major star. About a story that's not supposed to be particularly compelling. It's about a woman who works as a domestic. Who's supposed to care about that? So where are the major studios with that? So I don't know. I mean, I'm just putting it out there for discussion because I think it makes sense to discuss. And I would also say that, yes, I think it's ironic that Academy members get these films to look at anywhere they want, basically at home on their televisions, because film is a director-driven medium, and they keep insisting that you have to go to the movies to really see the movies intended. I think that especially applies to Academy Award members, especially when they're voting. They need to see the movie as it was specifically intended by the director in order to get a true sense of what the movie is about. Otherwise, according to film directors, they're doing the movie a disservice.
Right, but if you go back to the rules and regulations, the movies are distributed out there for us to see in those formats, in that quote unquote guise of information and rules by the Academy. So that's really neither here nor there regarding that. That's more how it's interpreted and things like that. But Spielberg's saying it has to be this, or I should say the Academy says it has to be this, and this. And all those things in the theater, quote unquote, abide by that. And now they're saying, okay, now we want the voting public, which is the Academy, to vote on it. So we'll send out this distribution for them to see so they can start voting. But as far as the public, it's always available for that. So it's really that argument, I guess, is not as strong in my mind because it was already distributed. When they're talking about the Academy, these movies are already out there. As far as the Academy is concerned, in the theaters, so they could be voted on to be part of the Academy Awards. So it's not the viewing audience that's the key, it's how it's distributed, like you said. And if it's distributed properly, whether it's a good movie or a bad movie, that needs to be determined. But if it's distributed properly, then Spielberg's argument is valid in that sense. But he's not really talking about who's viewing it. He's talking about how it's distributed to be viewed in the public.
Right, I'm saying, but that's the question.
But I'm just saying that's a little different than if you get the disc to review as the Academy. That's different because it's not this. It's not it. The rules of the Academy have already been facilitated when those discs are distributed. So,
but it's the people who are voting on. It's the people who are voting on these movies. They determine who gets best director, who gets best, picture, all that. And it seems to me if the rules of the Academy are that inviolate or that critical to the success to the continuation of the movie industry as we know it, it would seem to me that it's a little disingenuous, and I'm just putting it out there, that the Academy not insist that its members only view the content that they're voting on in the best possible situation, which is the movie theater.
Yeah, and I get that. That makes sense to me. So within the realms of this discussion, and what do you think, Steve? What's your opinion? Where do you see the validity or lack of validity, or as Karen said, disgenuine nature of what's going on here? Presented, I guess, the argument out there by Steven Spielberg.
Okay. The one thing that we discussed during one of our Oscar talks this year was that the Academy cares about the Academy. They don't really care what we think. They really don't. The public doesn't matter. The public does matter in the fact of they want these movies out there. They want the money to come in. They want to put things in theaters that people are going to see. I feel like the problem Steven Spielberg is presenting and the side of the argument he's leaving out of this is that there are movies that are coming out on Netflix. There are movies that are coming out on Amazon. There are movies that are coming out with Hulu that are frankly better movies. Mm-hmm. Not all of them. They're Netflix. They've gotten a lot better, but they have been doing a quantity over quality for a long period of time, and everybody's been doing it who does a streaming service. But the fact that the movies are getting so much better, and the fact that they're producing them in such a shorter period of time, they're opening up their actors and studios to more projects that they can work on. And I feel that Spielberg is presenting it as more of a hindrance on the movie theater industry as a whole than a hindrance on the quality of movies that they're including in the Academy itself. And that's where I feel like the line is drawn, is they're not presenting the whole argument is my problem. I've just been reading an article. I do also agree that there needs to be some semblance of resolution to this. That's the thing I agree on. Roma was in theaters for 21 days. Don't even have it in theaters. If you're going to have it in 21 days, located simply just in Los Angeles, there's no reason to have it. You're not getting a good read on what the rest of the the world, the country thinks about this movie if you're just going to have it in the theaters for 21 days, and then you're going to automatically post it on Netflix.
But the Academy only requires, the Academy doesn't, the Academy only wants the movie shown in Los Angeles County. Where's that? What's the reading in terms of that?
But that's just, they figure there's enough diversity in Los Angeles County.
But there isn't.
But there isn't. There's not at all. But that's how they're feeling. And that's one of the things that I've noticed that they're trying to change. Major multiplexes have an actual 90-day policy.
Right.
That before your movie comes out on any device, any DVD, anything, it has to be in the theaters for 90 days.
Right.
Or else they're not going to show it. So that's AMC, Regal, and all those. And if you're going, why would Netflix even bother?
Well, they wouldn't.
There's no point in it. But
there's absolutely no point.
It feels like it really does feel like the argument for quality of movies is not here. It's not present. It's not in any way, do these movies deserve to be here? That's not being brought up at all. That's not being brought up in the sense of the art itself. It's being brought up in the sense of the people I work for aren't making money. The people that have made me money aren't making money, and they need a spokesperson to go out there and to fire the first shot, and then we'll see what happens.
I mean, the thing that strikes me too is that Steven Spielberg's distribution argument, or what really seems to be a distribution argument, if it's not distributed in a specific way, then it shouldn't be considered, also just sort of dismisses the inaccessibility of movies for a good portion of the American public. There are places that don't have a movie theater, that people can go to. And also movies are very expensive. It used to, there are movie theaters that basically limit or restrict your ability to bring your children, even if it, so that means if you're going to go to a movie, you need to get a babysitter, you need to, take time, it all ends up being very expensive. And let's not even talk about the price of movie tickets that keeps going up too. And then you get to the movie theater to maybe a less than ideal experience because people are making noise, or they're on their phones, or, there are other kinds of interruptions that you won't have in your living room, or at least you can control the interruptions in your living room. So the overall experience of going to movies, I think, has deteriorated along with, the lack of civility over the years. So that's a big difference. But, it's like, who are the movies for? I think, Steve, you make a good point when you say the Academy doesn't really, they say that they care about the movie going public, but at the end of the day, they really don't. They care about their, sort of the advancement of the movie industry. And people like Steven Spielberg are not at the forefront of paving the way for independent filmmakers to get their projects seen. They're not. They are very much, Steven Spielberg would probably hate to be described as the old guard of Hollywood, but that's exactly what he is. So he has put himself in the position of sort of defending what has been. And then there are people like Alfonso Cuarón, who's like, if I need to get this movie made, if Netflix wants to play with me, I'm playing with Netflix. I'll play with whoever will play with me. And I don't care. I just want it distributed. I just want it seen. So if that means we have to do a 21-day window or a 5-day window first and then wide release, then I'll do whatever needs to be done, and I'll get, I'll cast the people that I want to cast. And the other thing that's also being left on the table is just the difference in how Netflix and Amazon deal with content creators versus the traditional studios. Generally, people feel like they get more creative freedom with a Netflix or an Amazon Prime, more so than with Sony, for example. And so if they want to do something strange, or if they don't want to put a named star in, they're going to get the green light to do that. That resonates. You know, I mean, that's why Ava DuVernay has a deal with Netflix. She's just about to release a movie at the end of next month called When They See Us, based on a true story about 5 young men who were charged, 5 young African-American men who were charged with the attack and rape on a young white woman jogger in Central Park. And I can't remember exactly when this happened, but it's based on a true story. Well, you know, she's working with Netflix on this.
And also, too, very quickly, a lot of the movies that are ending up on Netflix are also attracting really good actors, and away from these major productions and major situations, because these entities are all able to pay a little bit more money now because of the popularity of all of us watching them, a constant money stream coming through. Netflix is a subscription situation, and that's all over the country, and maybe even further. So there's money that's coming in. Case in point, a movie I thought was really good was The Fundamental of Caring, with an actor who is typically more of a melodramatic comedic actor in Paul Rudd, and playing a little bit more serious role, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. The viewing public is enjoying what we're seeing. The ability to see it more readily is also very appealing. That's not appealing to the old guards, we'll say the major studio out there, who is also trying to sway and bring in these same actors who are starting to show up more readily on the streaming network fields. So there's a lot out there to debate, and maybe we're not going to be able to talk about it all in one day, because even our time is kind of running out now. But I guess you want to protect your craft, and I don't see any difference in Spielberg in wanting to protect his craft, wanting to get people to see things in his films, which have been wonderful in major theaters, somewhat epic to some degree, but at the same time, times are changing, situations are changing, and maybe the Academy should change with them. I don't know.
One person's protection is another person's roadblock. What Steven Spielberg regards as protecting the industry also symbolizes a history of roadblocks for independent filmmakers who don't have access to the money or to the production assets that Steven Spielberg has long had.
Yeah, and that's part of the change too, because now we are seeing these films, and we, the viewing public, find them viable and entertaining and thirsting for more. And now these same entities that had a little bit harder time to find the money to produce are finding the money through, i.e. Netflix and Crackle and Hulu and Amazon. Times are changing, and maybe it's time for the Academy to reevaluate and see what that really means, even to the voting Academy itself.
Well, there's certainly been some disruption, and me personally, I like the idea of disrupting some of these like hard and fast rules, like the hard and fast rule that says you have to have like a quote unquote bankable star. And a bankable star is generally, almost always a man. Women aren't bankable, minorities aren't bankable, but if you get somebody like, I don't know, whoever, you get the main bankable star, you get Robert Downey Jr., you get Tom Cruise or whatever, then that's bankable. And these independent, these films that are showing up on Netflix are completely turning that rule on its head. And they're saying, no, we can have compelling content without a quote unquote bankable star. And in fact, I don't want the bankable star because I'll get a better product with this, unknown person who is doing what I want in the movie. they're portraying the character that I want portrayed, without the drama, without the trailers, without the Evian, without the sponsorship deals and all that other drama that comes with a bankable star.
See, you're saying that with bankable stars and everything, but Netflix is doing both. This year alone, Triple Frontier, Ben Affleck. The Highwaymen, which just recently came out, Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson. The Irishman, which is going to be Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. Polar, which is Michael Madsen. There's Last Laugh, a Netflix film, which has Chevy Chase in it. And Richard Dreyfuss. They're doing both. They're doing both.
Message
they're creating stars.
Message from the King.
Yeah, with Chadwick Boseman. Right,
yeah, they are
literally before the Black Panther, a $700 million movie.
They are doing both. You're absolutely right. But I guess what's key to me is that they're actually doing both, whereas the major movie studios were only doing the one thing, the bankable stuff, and that's it. That was all they were interested in. And these independent studios are at least raising the question or presenting the proposition that maybe that's not all, you don't need that necessarily, or it's not critical to the success of the project, not in the way that movie studios always said it was.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, and we've got about 2 or 3 minutes left here. Does this impede you even going to the theater to see any major films anymore? Is the ability to stream and or see things firsthand, or wait for them to eventually come onto the streaming, has that changed how you look at films? And again, are you going to the theater?
For me, it really doesn't change much. I go to the theaters for specific films anyway, films that I specifically want to see, not like maybes, or not guess, this may be good. I don't do that, like Avengers Endgame, Godzilla, the Aladdin movie, John Wick, that other movies of the Alita Battle Angel, other movies of that nature that seem grand in
epic.
What epic in what I like. I want to go see them in theaters. Now, The Highwaymen, which was a Netflix, which we just talked about being a Netflix movie, I would see that movie in theaters. Mm-hmm. But because of the story it's trying to tell, and it's an interesting, different version that we haven't seen in a while. And the having Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson in it and Kathy Bates doesn't make it not work, or doesn't leave the big bankable star, bad taste that may be going around. So,
well, for me, I'm less likely to go to the movie theaters these days. I'm more likely to wait. There's like several tiers of movies that I'm interested in watching, but the ones that I'll go to the movies to see are the epic, special effects, blockbusters that I feel can only be justifiably displayed in a movie theater format. Otherwise, I'm happy to wait until it shows up on Netflix or Hulu or Google Play, or where I get most of my movies from. I'm happy to wait.
Yeah, I'm a tweener also. If it's an epic, for me, Lord of the Rings, because of all its wonderment, just made sense for me to see it on a big screen. And yet, again, going back to even what Steve said, Message from the King, I could have seen it on a big screen, but seeing it at home, watching Chadwick Boseman, watching a film that I had never heard of, but ended up being quite well done. Yeah, I'm going to do both. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to come up with a major answer here, and it really wasn't so much to give you something definitive. It's more a matter of discussing what we think about what was said initially, and how we're going to proceed from here. But this conversation can go on much, much longer. And we